Welcome back to the FPL video and podcast. This will be my transfer plans, which will kind of be like an initial team selection as we have over a week left until the Gameweek 4 deadline. We're in the middle of an international break and I'll be discussing my transfer plans with 3 available moves at my disposal since I haven't made a single transfer so far this season. Smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. If you enjoy my content, let's try to get this to the 200 likes and let's keep on pushing towards 35 subscribers, which is our aim by the end of the year. Also check out the links in the description below for my Patreon, the Championships Discord server, FPL League, Drafthound, as well as Spotify. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Despite not keeping a clean sheet so far this season, Dean Henderson produced his best ever return for the campaign with 4 points, making 6 saves against Chelsea and putting in a top performance. He was quite unlucky not to get any bonus points. He was one of the best players in that match. A 1-1 draw at Stamford Bridge. Eze claimed maximum bonus points. Those that stuck with him were definitely rewarded, and a 4-pointer from a 4-point family and goalkeeper isn't too shabby whatsoever. My defensive line was also quite strong, with Trent keeping another clean sheet and Liverpool haven't conceded a single goal so far this season. Trent is the highest scoring defender in FPL with 20 points so far. He got 2 bonus back in Gameweek 1 and that's the only thing separating him from Robertson and Virgil van Dijk in the point scoring tally. But I still think Trent is worth 7 million. He's been fairly unlucky not to register an attack in return. He created big chances for Jota in the first 2 game weeks and had a goal disallowed against Manchester United at Old Trafford. So it's only a matter of time before some big returns come, and I'm talking about double-digit hauls for Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now next up is a budget defender who has been fantastic in Robinson. No clean sheet so far for Fulham, but he's making up for it with the assists and bonus points potential. That's already 2 assists in the new campaign. He got 6 last season, and at 4.6 million, he offers tremendous value. I'd highly recommend Robinson if you don't have him already. After the next 3 game weeks, the fixtures get quite tough for Fulham, but I still think Robinson can tick along nicely for the rest of the season. But someone who's not filling me with confidence right now is Mykolenko. He did go down to 4.4 million in price several weeks ago, and with good reason. Despite Everton having great fixtures until early December in Gameweek 14, they are just shocking defensively with 10 goals conceded in the first 3 game weeks. They were 2-0 up in the 87th minute and somehow managed to lose the game against Bournemouth. It's the first time it's ever happened in the Premier League. So that 6-pointer by Mykolenko turned into 1 very quickly, and he has been a huge disappointment so far. My 4th defender in Lewis Hall was benched yet again, and my 5th option, Barco, is on loan to Sevilla. So my defensive line needs some work, despite the likes of Robinson and Trent delivering very well once again. The midfield was rather mixed bag for me, with Diogo Jota blanking in a 3-0 win over Manchester United at Old Trafford. It was more disappointing because the likes of Diaz and Salah got double-digit hauls, whilst Jota produced nothing of note with only a clean sheet point to add to his name. He has been good over the first few game weeks with a goal and an assist, but he has missed several big chances, and with Diaz producing consecutive double-digit hauls, I think Jota can do much more playing down the middle. He's a very efficient player, and maybe in Gameweek 4 against Nottingham Forest, one of his favourite opponents, he can deliver and outscore the Colombian for the first time since Gameweek 1. My second midfielder is Saka, who got an assist, and he's been very consistent for the last couple of years for Arsenal. He turned 23 very recently, and he got 1 double-digit haul back in Gameweek 1 against Wolves, and he'll tick along nicely for the rest of the season with double digits in goals and assists for the campaign. He's done it multiple times already in FPL, and I would expect the same thing from him. But with the likes of Salah having 2 plum home fixtures against Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth, going from Saka to Salah isn't necessarily a bad move, with Arsenal facing Tottenham and Man City away back-to-back. But then from Gameweek 6 to 8, Arsenal have fantastic fixtures against Leicester and Southampton at home consecutively, followed up by Bournemouth away. So it makes navigating these Arsenal assets very tricky. You might want to bench some of them, like the defenders in the upcoming 2 game weeks, but Saka's really a player you can hold and play in the most difficult of games. The only fixture I'd expect him to blank in is probably at the Etihad in Gameweek 5. My third midfielder is Emil Smith-Rowe, who was very disappointing compared to Gameweek 2, where he did get 10 points in that particular fixture against Leicester, but I still like Smith-Rowe as a budget midfielder. He is overshadowed though by a certain Semenyo, who has produced returns in all 3 game weeks so far this season. And my 4th option was Eze. My patience was rewarded. I made a very late change in my deadline stream. I benched Chris Wood for Eze. I was fearing the worst after Wood got maximum bonus points and 9 overall, but Eze managed to trump him a little bit more And as a midfielder, the extra point for scoring a goal came in clutch. So in the end, I didn't regret that decision too much. It's just a shame I didn't bench one of Smith Rowe or Jota for Chris Wood. But my fifth and final midfielder was Anthony Gordon, another one who has been extremely disappointing so far this season. I benched him for his only return back in Game Week 2. So in the last couple of Game Weeks, I have benched a lot of points in Anthony Gordon and Chris Wood. I hope that's not the case going into the future. And my squad depth in the attacking areas is very strong. But with my transfer plans, it might seem simpler to form my starting 11, have fewer benching headaches due to the fixtures coming up. What more can we say about this Norwegian striker Erling Haaland with another hat-trick? That is back-to-back 3 goals against Ipswich Town and West Ham. Absolutely sensational. I triple captained him last week. I was very happy. Some people also pulled the trigger this week and they were also rewarded. I didn't really see West Ham as a fixture where he'd get a hat-trick in, maybe 1 or 2 goals, but he is exceeding our expectations. That's 7 goals in the new campaign, 41 FPL points. Only Salah can keep pace with him, and I think he'll be the top scoring FPL asset this season. Maybe a Salah or Palmer will have an advantage as a midfielder, but honestly, I don't see anybody getting close to Haaland in the Golden Boot race. He will easily get 30 or more if he can stay fit, and I believe he will do. So be very careful with Erling Haaland. Rotation later in the season is possible with so many competitions for Man City and extra games in the Champions League, but Haaland can play in every single one of them and score a bucketload of goals in the process. And the same goes for Isak, who scored the winner against Tottenham Hotspur despite being quiet through most of the game, and he had one chance earlier where Dragusin did very well to cover him, and Isak maybe took slightly long in actually making a decision and shooting, but I think Isak is a top quality asset. You don't want to sell him against Wolves ideally, who have been poor so far this season. They've conceded 9 goals in 3 game weeks with no clean sheets whatsoever, and Isak has a great record against them. But in order to buy a Salah, for those of you that have Erling Haaland as well, and going from Saka to Salah, an Isak down to a Joao Pedro or Welbeck might be the best course of action for your team. But if you don't need to sell Isak and fund other moves, then don't sell him, because I think he's a great asset to have for the next 2 game weeks. If anything, sell him in Game Week 6 when Newcastle face Manchester City. I captained Erling Haaland once again. He gave me 34 points, and that's 81 for the game week and 241 overall. My rank has gone up yet again to 266,000. At this time last year, I was at a similar rank. So after the first 2 game weeks, I was in a great position. Then in Game Week 3, I got a red arrow, and the rest is history, because up until Game Week 8, I had a terrible run, which pretty much cost me my season. I'm hoping to do much better this time round. And with free transfers, I've got the flexibility and options to really create a very strong squad for the next couple of game weeks that's competitive. I may even wildcard in Game Week 6, but that isn't penciled in. I want to be open-minded in terms of chip usage, and if possible, I'd like to delay that chip until later in the season as I get more information about the best teams and assets. But let's now head over to my transfer plans. This will not be locked in. Towards the end, I'll show you some different plans I've got using fpl.team. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below about which transfer plans you prefer. Even after the first 2 game weeks when Dean Henderson was looking like a shocking FPL asset, I was never looking to really change this position if possible, because it's the lowest scoring position of them all, and you'd rather focus your transfers on the midfield or forward line. If needed, maybe the defence, but with goalkeepers, you'd want to have a set and forget option until you wildcard, and that's probably my plan with Dean Henderson, who faces Leicester City at home. I know the Foxes can score goals. They've got some decent attacking talent like Vardy, Buenanote, and even Fatawu, but I think Dean Henderson can keep a clean sheet in this fixture, and he was in great form against Chelsea. The biggest issue with this set of transfer plans is my defensive line. So Trent will face Nottingham Forest. That looks fantastic, especially as a home fixture. I could see Liverpool keeping a clean sheet and possibly winning by 2 or 3 goals. And Trent has the capacity to get an assist and bonus points included. So I'm very happy with this pick, despite the fact that he's 7 million, and downgrading him could open up more possibilities with my FPL squad. I've got bigger fish to fry and some bigger issues in my squad. Next up is Robinson against West Ham at home. I'm not expecting a clean sheet here, to be honest, but the assists and bonus points are always a possibility with Robinson, especially in the last year or so. He had a great pre-season where he showed his attacking prowess, and he's built on that in the opening part of this season as well. But my third defender is Lewis Hall. This looks terrible because despite the fact that Wolves away isn't a bad fixture, will Lewis Hall start? I'm not so sure about that. With Lloyd Kelly getting an assist against Tottenham and starting consecutive games in the Premier League. And I'm very surprised by this. I thought Lewis Hall would start a lot of games this season, and he may still do, but it doesn't look great for him at this moment in time. And my other options include Mykolenko away to Aston Villa and Barco is red flag. So ideally, I'd buy a defender in this position. And if I could get an option at 4.5 million, I think Lewis Dunk is by far the best option over the next 2 game weeks. The main objective of my transfer plans is to buy Mohamed Salah, who faces Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth back-to-back in home matches. And for me, he's the best captaincy option, even over Erling Haaland. This is something I've discussed all week, and straight after Haaland scored a hat-trick against West Ham and before Liverpool's game against Manchester United. So Salah is going to be a priority transfer for me. I'm going to get him in. It's just a matter of how do I fund this move? And ultimately, it will be Saka making way. And I think Saka's a great option in the long term. You'd want to have him for Game Week 6 and beyond. And a double or triple up in Arsenal in that period is definitely viable and probably the best course of action for your FPL team. I'm still going to keep Diogo Jota, so I'd have a Liverpool triple up against Nottingham Forest. And I said this in pre-season. For me, Liverpool will be top of the Premier League table after 8 game weeks. Their fixtures are fantastic. They've gone on to a flying start and they're playing even better than I expected. So I think this triple up could work wonders. But you may argue that Diaz is even better than Jota. But they do play Argentina in a couple of days' time. That'll be a very competitive game. And with larger travel distances, I think Jota has a better chance of starting the game than Diaz, or at least playing more minutes than the Colombian. Now, my third midfielder is Emil Smith-Rowe. I'm going to a midfield 4 this time round, and he's facing West Ham at home. It's a decent fixture for him, and I could see him getting plenty of goal contributions for Fulham this season. But I do admit, Semenyo is currently the best budget midfielder. Smith-Rowe would probably be second. But with the upcoming fixtures, it's worth keeping Emil Smith-Rowe and reassessing this situation in a couple of weeks' time. But my last midfielder is Eze. He's going to be a priority transfer in for many people, and this was always a fixture that I looked at and thought, I don't want to sell Eze just before he faces Leicester City at home. He could easily get multiple goal contributions. Even 1 goal could be enough to get maximum bonus points, as he did at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea with a great goal from outside the box. I think Eze is one of the best midfielders in the game, and I'd rather have him over Mbeumo for the next couple of game weeks at least, and ideally, you'd have both of them in your setup for the long term. Another transfer I'm looking to make is to get a Brighton forward. This could either be Joao Pedro or Danny Welbeck, and if you're asking me, the safer pick would be Danny Welbeck because he hasn't been called up for international duty, while Joao Pedro has done in the last couple of days, and that could be a big concern with the huge travel distances and jet lag. So Brazil play Ecuador tonight, and they have an away fixture in a couple of days' time against Paraguay. This would be on Tuesday night local time and also Wednesday morning in the UK. So it doesn't give the likes of Joao Pedro much breathing room to then start and also be fully fit, have a lot of training sessions for Brighton just before the weekend and Game Week 4 begins. So that is going to be a risky pick. But if Joao Pedro, it doesn't really play many minutes for Brazil and he comes back early from international duty, I think he'll be one of my transfers in. He's 5.7 million. He's very versatile and can play so many positions as an attacking midfielder, winger, or even up front. And Brighton have so many options, especially in the attacking areas. But Joao Pedro isn't the only player to be affected by large travel distances. Just look at Matoma, for example, and I covered this in my recent podcast as well. The second forward will be none other than Erling Haaland. There's no real surprises here. And not too much to discuss, as we all know what Erling Haaland is, an absolute goal-scoring machine. I personally think Brentford will be a tougher game than West Ham, Ipswich and Chelsea, but you look at what I said last week and the fact that I wouldn't triple captain Erling Haaland, you can't underestimate him on his current form. He can do it against absolutely anybody, even Arsenal at home in Game Week 5 or Newcastle away in Game Week 6. So on his current form, you could just easily captain Erling Haaland and there's no real dilemmas. I think the biggest issue lies with those with Salah and Haaland in the same team, because in Game Week 4, there's certainly a big debate as Salah has the better fixture on paper, and as a midfielder, he's got the advantage of getting clean sheet points and the additional point for scoring a goal. But my final player could be Isak in the starting 11. Ideally, I would keep him against Wolves, and if you're asking me to choose between him or Gordon, I'd be picking Isak. He's got better underlying numbers and I trust him more away from home compared to Anthony Gordon. But so far this season, Gordon scored Newcastle's only goal on their travels, and we could see a big shift this season where Anthony Gordon delivers away from home and continues to blank in home matches. It's kind of ridiculous, by the way. He's already got 2 home blanks, Anthony Gordon. That's what he did last season. So I always actually expected this in the summer. I said there'll be kind of a big difference in his home form. He'll not produce as regularly there, and he'll do better away from home. So there'll be more of a balance, but maybe we'll see the complete opposite, and Anthony Gordon will get so many attacking contributions in away matches. So, of course, we're only very early on in the season. Let's see how things pan out. But Isak is still one of the best forwards in FPL. If you can, definitely keep the Swede in your team. In order to buy Salah, I would have to make 2 downgrades. One of them would be Anthony Gordon to Morgan Rogers, and the second is Chris Wood to either Joao Pedro or Danny Welbeck. And I'm very happy with these transfer plans overall. It also allows me to bench Morgan Rogers in most game weeks and not have these bench points I've been getting in the last couple of game weeks. But my main issue with these transfer plans is the lack of defensive cover. I would be forced to start one of Lewis Hall, who might not even start in Game Week 4, or Mykolenko, who faces Aston Villa away. I don't see Everton keeping a clean sheet there. If anything, it could be another 1-pointer, possibly even worse this time round. Aston Villa are definitely capable of scoring 3 or 4 goals against Everton given their current form. But in terms of the captaincy, Salah will be my captain if I buy him, and Erling Haaland will be the vice. If I don't buy Salah, then Haaland will be my captain with no captaincy dilemmas whatsoever. But as for the bench, I think that speaks for itself. Rodgers would be first, Mykolenko second, and Barco is still there like a cockroach in third, and Matthews is my backup goalkeeper. But I have to say, the defensive line needs some work, and what I'll show you next will address this issue. So let me know down in the comment section below, as I said earlier, which transfer plans do you prefer out of this, and what I'm going to show you next, which focuses on a Brighton defender alongside the likes of Salah and Joao Pedro. If you haven't already, check out the link in the description below for Drafthound. It's a great resource I've been using for over a year. Many of you are signing up using my link and talking about how useful and also fun that this website is to use. And if we look at the transfer suggestions, they're recommending Saka to Salah and Isak to Welbeck. And remember, I've got 3 transfers available, so I could still add another one to my list. They also recommend Mykolenko to Gvardiol and Saka to Diaz, and they've actually got a lot of suggestions, so it's not just the top one they recommend. They've got 3, 4, and even more if you wish. But what I want to check is actually the optimization tool. So by clicking this green icon, they recommend Eze and Lewis Hall in the starting 11, with Mykolenko and Chris Wood dropping to the bench. And this squad would be without making any single transfers whatsoever. The expected points are still quite high, and the same goes for expected minutes. I believe Lewis Hall will be dragging that particular stat considerably down, actually, compared to the rest of the players in the starting 11. The average ownership is also lower than it has been in previous seasons. You've also got the player rankings and many other tools, and as you can see, you can toggle it by expected points over the next 3 game weeks, or if you wish, you can do it for 1 game week only, and Haaland is still top in that metric, Salah's second, and there's a huge gap between those two and the rest of the pack. Diaz is currently highly rated by the Drafthound algorithm in third. So be sure to check out the link in the description below. You have a great time whilst using this resource, and it's very insightful. There's not even just the player rankings. You've also got player scouting, which is a new feature, and it also has so much in-depth information. If you want to go into a bit of an FM style football manager, I think it's got a lot of analysis which will help you with your decision making. FPL.team is a free resource that I use to visualize future game weeks, and with these transfer plans, it will be Dean Henderson in goal, Robinson, Dunk, and Trent Alexander-Arnold, and the Brighton centre-back would come in for Lewis Hall with these transfer plans. Smith Rowe, Jota, Salah, Gordon, and Eze would be the midfield 5, with Haaland and Joao Pedro or Danny Welbeck up front. Chris Wood would remain, but it would be Isak who'd be the sacrificial lamb alongside Bukayo Saka. I've got Matthews, Mykolenko, and Barco also on the bench. So the key difference is with these transfer plans compared to what I showed you earlier is that I can buy Lewis Dunk for Lewis Hall, and that improves my team dramatically in the defensive line, particularly for the next 2 game weeks. And I'd also keep Anthony Gordon, but sell Isak under these circumstances and keep Chris Wood in the process. So it's not going to be too easy. I don't think one is much better than the other, but I have to say the fact that I can improve the defensive line, which is a big weakness for my team, if you look at my 3rd to 5th options, I think these transfer plans might be even better than what I showed you earlier. But I want to see your thoughts, of course. As always, you may have another opinion which maybe informs me of something I've missed. But Salah will be the captain with these transfer plans, and Haaland would be the vice. The expected points is 59 according to fpl.team. I think their expected points kind of ratings are much harsher than Drafthound's, for example, and I'd have around 0.1 million in the bank. I believe I have 0.2 or 0.3 at the moment, and that's something that needs to be taken into account as well. But thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Our aim is to get this video to the 200 likes, and let's keep on pushing towards 35 subscribers and beyond. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships, the Discord server, FPL League, Drafthound, and also Spotify. Keep your eyes peeled for more useful fantasy content. I did upload the first draft very recently, and in my team selection, I'll be covering my final transfers, and of course, during the deadline stream, you'll see my locked-in squad for Gameweek 4.